Welcome to our deep dive, and we're going to be taking a look at Boeing.
Oh, yeah.
So everyone probably knows Boeing makes airplanes,
Right.
but there's a really fascinating story to this company.
Absolutely.
Not all of it is good, as we're going to see.
Yeah, a very up and down story. This is
Yeah.
kind of a story of hubris, really, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But we're going to be using the American Scandal podcast
Okay.
as our source today. They did a really good series on this.
Right.
And in particular, we're going to be featuring a lot of the insights from Scott Hamilton,
Okay.
who was an aviation expert, and he wrote the book Air Wars,
Cool.
which is about the competition between Boeing and Airbus.
Okay.
So I think he's got a lot of really great insights on this.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So to get started, Boeing started way back in 1916
Yeah.
in Seattle.
Humble beginnings, right?
Yeah.
For such a giant.
And actually, their early success came from the Model 24/7.
Oh, yeah. That was really considered the first modern airliner.
Okay.
And it was,
I mean, think about it. In
Yeah.
those days, you think of just like an open cockpit,
right,
you know?
like the Spirit of St. Louis kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. But they actually designed it for passenger comfort.
Yeah. It had two engines.
Hmm.
It had noise reduction.
Yeah.
It was pretty revolutionary for its time.
Wow.
It really did set the stage for air travel as we know it today.
That's incredible. But Boeing wasn't always on top, right?
Right. They had a competitor,
Okay.
Douglas Aircraft.
Okay.
Now, Douglas Aircraft built the DC-3.
Oh, yeah.
And the DC-3 was so dominant in the pre-war era
Okay.
that something like 85% of all commercial air traffic was on a DC-3.
Wow. I didn't realize how dominant.
Yeah, they were the kings
Wow.
of the skies at that point.
Okay. So then how did Boeing?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So you have World War II,
Right.
and Boeing really shines
Okay.
during the war effort with their B-17
Okay.
and B-29 bombers.
Uh-huh.
So this is really a turning point for them
Right.
because it showcases their engineering prowess, their manufacturing capabilities,
Right.
and it really sets the stage for their post-war success.
Oh, okay.
And that success comes in the form of the 707,
Oh, yeah.
which launches the jet age.
That's right. And I mean, that's
Yeah,
a big deal.
huge deal.
I mean, all of a sudden now you can go from New York to London
Exactly.
in just a few hours.
Transatlantic travel is no longer this multi-day ordeal.
Right.
It's a matter of hours now, thanks to the 707.
Wow. But wasn't this around the same time that
Yeah.
a new player came on the scene?
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting.
Airbus.
Airbus, exactly.
Okay.
And Airbus
So how did they?
emerges as this European consortium.
Okay.
And at first, a lot of the American manufacturers, they didn't take Airbus seriously.
Really?
They kind of dismissed it as, oh, this is just a European jobs program.
Oh, wow.
You know, it's not really a threat.
Wow. So they really underestimated.
They underestimated them big time.
Okay. So what was it about Airbus?
Well, they had a couple of things going for
Okay.
them. One, they really focused on fuel efficiency
Okay.
and passenger comfort.
Got it.
And
Makes sense.
especially for airlines who are trying to cut costs and, you know, make their passengers happier.
Of course.
But their secret weapon was this guy named John Leahy,
Okay.
who was this American marketing whiz
Oh, wow.
who went and joined Airbus,
Okay.
and he really understood the global market.
Okay, so was this the guy who orchestrated that deal with United?
Yeah, so in 1992,
Okay.
he managed to get United Airlines to place a massive order for 50 A320s.
Wow.
And this was a huge blow to Boeing. It was a
Real?
real wake-up call
Wow.
that they had a serious competitor on their hand
Yeah.
who understood the global market.
Okay, so how did Boeing respond to this?
Well, internally, they were going through some changes too.
Okay.
In the late 1990s, they had a new CEO, Harry Stonecipher,
Okay.
and he came from the world of GE, which was known for being very focused on financial performance.
Right.
And so this is where we start to see what Scott Hamilton calls the gentrification of Boeing.
Okay, what does that mean?
Basically, Stonecipher prioritized what's called shareholder value.
Okay.
So it's like, do you want to make the best plane or do you want to make the most money?
Right.
And Stonecipher was very focused on profits and stock buybacks.
Okay.
And some argue that this came at the expense of long-term investment
Got it.
and potentially even safety considerations.
Ah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and this really starts to have ripple effects throughout the company.
Okay.
It affects their design decisions. It affects their production processes.
Okay.
And we really see this play out in the development of the 787 Dreamliner,
Oh, yeah, the Dreamliner.
which was supposed to be this revolutionary plane,
Right.
the first all-composite airliner.
Right. It was supposed to be incredibly fuel efficient.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Well, the idea was to build the 787 like a giant Lego set. So they would manufacture different sections all over the world
Right.
and then assemble it in Washington State.
Okay.
It was a very bold idea,
Yeah.
but also incredibly complex.
Right.
And to cut costs, Boeing outsourced a lot of the production.
Okay.
And this led to quality control issues
Really?
and massive delays.
Wow.
So the Dreamliner
Yeah.
really kind of exposed the challenges of excessive outsourcing
Mm-hmm.
and the potential risks of prioritizing cost cutting over quality.
Right. And so did they learn their lesson from that or?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't
Yeah.
it? Because the pressure to compete with Airbus
Right.
and that focus on shareholder value
Right.
ultimately led them down a similar path with the 737 MAX.
Uh-oh.
And that's where things really take a turn for the worse.
Okay. So that's going to be for next time.
Stay tuned.
For part 2.
We'll see you then.
Hmm.
So the Dreamliner kind of showed some of the problems with this approach. But
Yeah, they didn't exactly learn their lesson. So what happened with the 737 AX?
well, to compete with the Airbus A320neo,
Right.
Boeing decided to modify their existing 737 design
Okay.
instead of making a whole new plane.
Okay.
And they put these bigger, more fuel-efficient engines on it,
Okay.
which sounds good in theory, right?
Yeah. More fuel efficiency.
Yeah, money.
Yeah.
But it had these unintended aerodynamic consequences
Okay.
because the engines were bigger and in a different spot.
Right.
It actually changed how the plane handled.
Huh.
And so they created this system called MCS.
Yeah, MCS. I remember that.
Yeah, the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System.
Right. So what is?
Basically, it was supposed to compensate
Okay.
for those aerodynamic changes
Okay.
caused by the new engines.
Got it.
But the problem was
Yeah.
it relied on a single sensor.
Okay.
And if that sensor malfunctioned,
Uh-oh.
the MCAS would force the plane's nose down
Oh, really?
repeatedly
Oh, wow.
and override the pilot's inputs.
So it's like a single point of failure.
Exactly.
That's scary.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened
Right.
in the Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines crashes.
Right.
Tragically, 346 lives were lost.
Yeah, it was devastating.
And the investigations found that Boeing knew
They knew.
about these potential issues with MCS,
Oh, wow.
but they didn't really tell the pilots about it.
What?
They kind of assumed that the pilots could react quickly enough
Oh.
to override the system.
Wow. So they kind of,
A little bit of overconfidence, I think.
yeah.
And that, along with other factors, really raised serious concerns about Boeing's safety culture.
Yeah, I mean, so was the FAA at all involved in this? Like,
Yeah, so the FAA's role,
because they're the ones who,
they certify the planes.
right.
And their role in certifying the 737 MX really came under a lot of scrutiny.
Okay.
Some people argue that there was a degree of regulatory capture
What is that?
where the agency that's supposed to be overseeing
Right.
gets too close to the industry they're regulating
Oh.
and they kind of lose their objectivity.
Wow.
And the fact that the FAA was really slow
Okay.
to ground the MX
Right.
compared to other aviation authorities around the world.
Right. Everyone else grounded it.
Yeah, it really fueled those concerns.
Wow. So what happened to Boeing after all this came out?
Well, the fallout was huge.
Yeah.
They faced multiple investigations, lawsuits.
Right.
A lot of public trust was eroded.
Yeah.
And in the end, they pleaded guilty
Really?
to defrauding the government.
Wow.
They had to pay billions of dollars in fines,
Billions.
billions with a B,
Wow.
and implement new safety procedures.
So do you think that was enough? Like billions of dollars sounds like a lot, but
Well, Scott Hamilton argues
okay.
that while the financial penalties were big,
Right.
they don't really account for the loss of life
Yeah.
and the damage to Boeing's reputation.
Right.
So rebuilding trust is going to be a long process.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, they did fix the MCAS system, right?
Right. They made changes to it.
And they have new safety procedures, so.
Yeah, but there's still skepticism. Would you feel comfortable flying on a 737 MX today? I don't know.
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
And I think it's a personal decision
Yeah.
everyone has to make for themselves.
Based on, yeah,
Your own risk tolerance.
Right.
And how much you trust the information that's out there.
but Scott Hamilton himself has said he still has reservations.
Yeah, he's not totally convinced.
Why is that?
He's concerned about Boeing's overall production quality.
Okay.
He points to incidents like there was a brand new 737 MAX,
Okay.
and only 10 weeks after it was delivered,
Wow.
the door blew out.
What?
Yeah. And there have been other reports of production issues.
Oh,
So it seems
darn.
like that focus on shareholder value and
Mhm.
cost cutting
Right.
might have led to some compromises in quality control
Oh, wow.
and maybe even a culture of complacency.
So it sounds like Boeing has a long way to go
Yeah, they have a lot of work to do.
to regain people's trust.
Absolutely.
So what are they doing now to like address these issues?
Well, they have a new CEO. You okay?
Kelly Orberg,
Okay.
and he's made it clear that his priority is to restore Boeing's engineering legacy
Okay.
and rebuild trust.
Okay.
And he's done some things that are kind of symbolic.
Okay.
Like he moved his office back to Seattle
Oh, really?
next to the factory floor.
Wait, their headquarters weren't even in Seattle?
No, they moved them out in 2001,
Oh, wow.
which a lot of people saw as kind of symbolic,
No.
that they were moving away from their engineering roots
Right.
and becoming more focused on financial performance
Yeah, okay.
than on actually building airplanes.
So by moving back to Seattle, he's trying to signal like a return.
Yeah, a return to their core values.
Right.
But is it a genuine change
Right.
or just a PR move?
Yeah.
Only time will tell.
Right.
But he's got a big job ahead of him.
Yeah, he does.
He has to address these deep-seated issues within Boeing,
Right.
from the production quality to their relationship with the FAA,
Uh-huh.
to the way they make decisions about safety.
Yeah, it's like turning around a giant ship.
It's
It's going to take a while.
Yeah, and there are always going to be potential hazards along the way.
Yeah, it really makes you think like if we're all on this this plane, the plane of progress,
Right.
who's actually flying it?
That's a great question.
And are we even going in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, Boeing's story really raises these bigger questions
Right.
about, the role of corporations in society.
Right.
And how do we balance innovation and profits
Mhm.
with public safety,
Especially when you're talking about,
especially when lives are at stake?
yeah, people's lives.
Yeah.
So we've covered a lot of ground today
Okay.
from, those early wins
Yeah, those early triumphs.
to the rise of Airbus
Yeah.
and then, these cultural shifts inside Boeing.
Uh-huh.
That kind of led to this whole 737 MAX crisis.
Yeah, it's a complicated story.
Yeah, with no easy answers.
Yeah, and what's really striking to me
Yeah,
is how interconnected everything is.
right.
Like we've seen how engineering decisions,
Mhm.
corporate culture,
Right.
global competition,
Yeah.
government regulation,
It all plays a role.
it all ties together.
Yeah, and it just shows how important it is
Yeah,
to think critically
absolutely.
and make informed decisions.
Yeah, and not just for companies,
Right.
but for all of us as individuals.
Right, because ultimately we're the ones flying on these planes.
Exactly. We're all affected by these decisions.
So if we kind of zoom out a little bit,
Yeah,
Boeing's story makes us think about
Yeah.
how do we make sure that technology
right.
actually benefits people?
Yeah, does it put people first
Yeah.
or is it just about profits?
Yeah, and how do we hold these big companies accountable?
Exactly.
And how do we make sure that the people who are supposed to be regulating them
Right.
are actually doing their job?
Are they effective? Are they unbiased?
Right.
Those are big questions.
Yeah, big questions. So
Yeah.
what would you say is like the key takeaway for our listeners today?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed and engaged.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask tough questions,
Okay.
whether it's about the products you use,
Right.
the companies you support,
Uh-huh.
or the policies that shape our world.
Yeah, because knowledge is power.
Exactly. The more you know,
Right.
the better decisions you can make.
So speaking of questions,
Yeah.
what would you ask Boeing's new CEO
Oh, that's a good one.
if you had the chance?
Hmm.
Like, what would make you feel comfortable
Yeah. What would it take?
flying on a Boeing plane again?
That's a great question for everyone to think about.
Yeah.
What information do you need?
Yeah.
What assurances would you want?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's a personal choice.
Right.
How much risk are you willing to accept?
But you have to
But you need information
understand the situation.
to make an informed decision.
Right. It's kind of crazy to think
Yeah.
that even with all the technology
All the engineering.
and all the engineers,
There's still risk.
there's always going to be risk.
Yeah. Yeah. We put a lot of trust
Yeah.
in these systems.
Right.
And it's important to hold the people who build those systems accountable.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I think we've done a pretty good job
I think so.
of going through this whole Boeing story.
Yeah. It's been a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah.
We've seen their rise and fall
Uh-huh.
and the challenges they're facing now.
Yeah.
Hopefully our listeners feel like they have a better understanding
Yeah.
of the complexities of this industry.
And they can, continue to explore
Absolutely.
and learn more.
Yeah. Keep asking questions.
Yeah. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.
Exactly.
All right. Well, until next time.
Safe travels, everyone.
Safe travels.